What's going on, guys? Mr. Domo here, and welcome back to the channel. So a lot of people requested on how do I send in action figures to get graded by AFA, AFA being the Action Figure Authority. So it is somewhat requested by viewers, and you know what, I want to help people out there who are collectors or just want to get action figures graded. And so I'm gonna do two examples today. I'm gonna show you how to grade a loose action figure, and then I'm gonna show you how to grade a carded slash box action figure, which is kind of the same thing. But as you can see here, we are at the AFA website, the Action Figure Authority website. And I'll put the link in the description below, so that way it just makes it a lot easier for you guys to just click on that, and then that way it'll take you straight to their homepage and you could just go from there. So here we have their homepage, and so the first thing I would highly recommend is that you go ahead and get an account with AFA. It just makes it a lot easier for AFA to get in contact with you if they have any questions about your submission of action figures. And so they don't spam you with emails or anything like that. The only time they email you is if they have questions about your order or giving you an update on your order, or if something's changing within AFA, like maybe there's a certain service that's not going to be going on for a while, or they have a new service, or they're attending some kind of convention like San Diego Comic-Con or the Star Wars celebration. So those are the only times I get emails from AFA. Other than that, they don't spam me about like, hey, send some figures to get graded, or whatever. And sometimes they do discounts too, which is nice. So when the holidays come around, they do offer discounts and so forth. So I would highly recommend opening an account with them, and that's pretty much easy. You just go into their login section, and then here, once you're at their login section, you could kind of just go ahead and register for a free account, and it's real simple. But going back to their homepage here, once you have your account and you're all ready to submit, go ahead and scroll over to this tab, which is Submission Center, and then you're going to go down to Forms, click on Forms, and then down here, what you want to do is scroll down, and you have three options here. So here you have the first one, which is a submission form with directions. Then you have the second one, which is just submission forms, and then the third one is pretty much additional forms if you have multiple action figures that you're sending. So you just want to go ahead and click on submission forms here. Now this is going to open up as a PDF file, and what you want to do is go ahead and print this out. Once you have it printed out, then we'll go ahead and we'll go step by step on what you need to fill out. Alright guys, so once you have your forms printed out, here I have all the forms here, and it should be 6 pages. So the first one here is going to be your kind of your standard submission form, which is asking for your general information. So I highlighted all the important stuff that you need to fill out at a minimum for to submit action figures to AFA, excuse me. And so here, of course, they're asking for your billing information, so you put your name, address. If you have a longer address, you would apply it there. The city, the state, the zip code, the country, and then a telephone number, and then an email address. Now, this is very important because they do contact you, for your invoice when they're going to charge you for the grading, and then also they give you the tracking number once your items are graded, and so that way you could track your items. Now, if your billing information is separate from your shipping address, then you would put your shipping address on this side. But if it's all the same, just keep it on this side. Now here, the shipping address, they just want you to circle 1 if it's a home or a business, and then the eBay ID. I don't add a eBay ID. I don't know why they use it, but I don't use it at all. So that's the first page. Now for this example, I'm going to be doing one for a loose Kenner, Darth Vader. So here's how I have it. I do have a case, and then I put it in a baggie. And then what I do with the accessories, just because I don't want the saber tip to break off or anything like that during shipping, is I usually tape it to the door or the little case, so that way it stays the way it is, nicely secure. So I'm gonna do one loose action figure for this example, and then here I actually have a carded Boba Fett Power of the Force 2 card back, and this is a Japanese variant. So I'm gonna be doing that for this example. So we have two figures to get graded today. So we got one loose action figure and then one graded action figure. So I'll put those off to the side. And so there's the first page. Now the second page is actually all the details they need for what you're grading. So here, as you can see, you have the form number, so how many forms you're going to be using. If you're just using one, just put a 1 there. The quantity, so how many action figures. So if I had multiple Darth Vaders, then I would put 2, 3, or whatever. The year that it was manufactured, the company, so these are all Kenner. The series or game system, these I just put Star Wars. Now the details and title, I just usually put loose or carded or box. So just the style of how the figure is getting graded. Now for the name and variation here, I just put the name. You don't have to put every little detail. Don't worry about it. They know what they're grading. So I'm just gonna put Darth Vader and then Boba Fett. Now the fair market value, now that's really that's up to you and how much you paid for your figures. So for these two guys, I'm gonna put $50, so the total will be $100 once I calculate it. The tier code and the tier cost, that's something I'm gonna show you and how to get the tier code and the tier cost. And then of course in that, I'm gonna show you the optional upgrades that you could get. So I always get my figures clean, so that's an additional $5 if you want to report. If you want to upgrade your case to UV protection, you could do that here, and they don't offer the photograph anymore. And then once you have your tier costs and the optional costs for the upgrades, you just tally it up right here on the total cost. Down here, you would write how many items are being graded. So we're gonna do 2, so we'll put 2 there, and then whatever the cost comes out to, we're gonna add it right here. Now for this one right here, the classic style label and the clear view style label, that really depends on how you want your label to be. So let me just show you really quick on how it's gonna look depending on those two options. Alright guys, so I pulled out 2 of my Boba Fett, the vintage collection Boba Fetts that I had in my, in my display. So this is actually the only one that I have here. So if you're going for the clear view option, so what that's gonna do is they're gonna put the label on top of whatever is getting graded. So it's always gonna be above the item. So this is how it's gonna display if you want the clear view option on your label. Now if you want the classic view, which I prefer because I love it, is having the label down there at the bottom. So it makes the case a little bit smaller because as you can see, it is taller. The clear view is taller, but the classic view is the case is just the size of the actual card back or box item or whatever you have, and then they put the label off to the bottom or off to the side for like loose graded figures. So I just wanted to show you that the option there. So this is the classic and this is the clear view option. Alright guys, so going back to the form, like I said, if depending if you want a classic style or clear view style label, then you would choose whatever option you want there. The second option is if a box item submitted for grading is like questionable and they need to cut into it, and they want to inspect the items, then you choose the option yes or no on that, and it just depends. If it's good, then it'll go under a qualified scale, and maybe the prices might change. But if you don't want them to open it, if it's a box or a sealed item, then just press no, or just check off no, and then most likely they'll email you and then ask you what you want to do next. So those are the two right there. And then the last one down here at the bottom you have three different options, and this is just in case if an item is refused to be graded due to, maybe some, maybe it was touched up, or, there's some repo items or whatnot. You do have three options here. So you could have it, the first option is to have it sealed in an acrylic case, but with no grade level or label, excuse me, so you won't get a label. The second option is just giving it back to you uncased, so that's the default if you don't check off this one. And they will charge you for grading even though it doesn't get cased. Or the third option is to get it cased, but it's an unsealed sliding bottom custom acrylic case. So the bottom slides out so you could take the item out if you wanted to. And so I usually choose the second one, just return it back to me, and then I'll figure out what to do after that. So that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead, go back to the website, and then figure out our tier code and tier cost and any additional options that we want to do. Alright guys, so now we identified two figures that we want to get graded. So we have one loose vintage Kenner Darth Vader, and then we have one carded vintage Kenner Boba Fett on a Power of the Force 2 card back. So we're back at the home page here, and so what you want to do to get the pricing and the tier codes is go down to Submission Center, scroll all the way down till you get pricing and tier codes, click on that, and a new window is going to open up, and you'll see three additional tabs here on this window. So here it's always going to default to the packaged toys grading cost, and that has to deal with anything that's unopened, still factory sealed package, action figures. So of course that's going to apply to the Boba Fett that is still sealed in its Power of the Force 2 card back. The second tab, excuse me, is the loose toys grading cost, and that has to do with any loose action figures that you want to get graded. And then the third one is the recase cost, and that has to do with anything that AFA graded, and let's just say the acrylic case is broken, or the action figure is loose inside and you need to get it recased. That's where you're going to go to get the tier code and the tier pricing for getting either a carded figure or a loose action figure recased, and you'll get the code, or the tier code, excuse me, and then the price for that. So we're gonna go ahead and stick with the default one, which is the packaged toy, and we're gonna go ahead and do the Boba Fett. So as you can see, the first one is the modern grading scale, and this has to do with anything that's unopened, still packaged from 2000 till today. So anything from 2000 and present, that's where you're gonna go, anything that's manufactured from 2000 and present. So the grading scale here is the same as a vintage. So I'm just gonna go ahead and scroll down, and here if you have a vintage item, anything that's below the manufacturing year of 2000, you're gonna go to the standard grading scale. And so here it's pretty much, the scale is set up just like everything else. So if it's loose or packaged, the grading scale is all the same. So you have multiple tiers here, and this all has to deal with how much you want to pay and how fast do you want your item. So it could go from 7 to 10 days all the way to 2 to 3 months turnaround period. Now down here you'll see the standard size for the action figure. Now if it's just a regular action figure, I'm talking about like if it's like a Black Series or anything that's 6 inches, or even if it's the 3 3/4 inch action figures, you're gonna stay with the standard size action figure. Now these other custom size that you see 1 through 6, now that has to deal with anything bigger, like if you're gonna do like a play set. Now if you're gonna do a huge item, then what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna measure out the height, the width, and the depth of that packaged item, and then add it all up, and then depending on what you get your measurements in inches, it's gonna apply right here. But if it's just a standard action figure, don't worry about it, just go with the first one. So now you know that it's a standard size action figure. You're gonna come over here, and depending on what kind of turnaround that you want, you're gonna go ahead and pick your tier code and then the tier price. Now so I usually go with the 2 to 3 months turnaround point, because it's a little bit cheaper, and so here this is the tier code that I would use. So this is the tier code that I'm going to use for Boba Fett, and here is the tier price. Now another thing that applies, not just the turnaround, but it's the max value, the market value of whatever you're sending off. So if it's something that's over $400, as you see right here, then you're gonna have to move to the next one. And of course, if it's more than $1,000, then you're gonna have to move over to the next one, and so on. So two things apply here is what turnaround you want, and then of course the max value of your items. Here, this last tier that you see here, this is for the UV like upgrade of the case. So if you know your items are kind of sitting next to a window, or there's a lot of sun that's going to be coming into your displayed action figures or whatever, then you might want to go with the UV. But if not, if you're not worried about it because it's indoors, not next to any windows, then I wouldn't worry about it. But here you would just get, depending on the size, you would just add the plus UV code, and then you would add the pricing on it. So the first tier for standard size action figure is $15, and then it goes all the way down. Now, of course, as you can see right here, it doesn't have a price, it just says call, and that's because that's a huge item, and so you need to contact AFA. Probably just shoot them an email and let them know, hey, I got this huge item and you want to get graded, but you don't have the prices, and then they'll work with you and then tell you how much it's going to cost. Now, if you scroll down here, you'll see that there's additional services that you could you could opt into. You don't have to get this, but for $20 more and this code GR, you could get a kind of a grading summary on your graded items. So it just kind of gives you an outline of how's the bubble, how's the card back, how's the figure, and so forth. Now for $75 and the DGR, you get a detailed graded report corresponding to your item. So that's like, if they find anything that's wrong with the card back, they have like this kind of like a report card of the items, and if you want that report card, then you could opt into that and you get it. Now what I always do for my figures, even package figures, as I always go for the cleaning of the cleaning service, excuse me, and that's $5, and that's the CL, and that's pretty much, they remove dirt, debris, any sticky residue if they can, without damaging the card back or the action figure. And I always do that because it just helps the figure, get it nice and cleaned up. And I really don't know if it really applies to your grading, if it makes the grading a little bit better or not, but I always do it just because that way they're not throwing in a dirty figure into the acrylic case. Now if you scroll down further, you have the qualified grading scale, and these are items that are kind of unique. So if they're kind of like if they're signed action figures, or they're from action figures that were kind of like a prototype, or they belong to like maybe like an employee, like a Kenner employee or whatever, then this is the code that you would get. So like the Boba Fett that was signed at a toy expo, it had to go under the qualified grading scale, so they could pretty much make sure that the person, the autograph on that card back is authentic. So if you have an item like that, then you will go to the qualified grading scale. And then if you move down further, this is your standard grading scale for mailers. So mailers, I don't know if you noticed, but of course it has to deal with any action figures that are bagged and still in its mail box, like Kenner mail out action figures. And so here you can see they have different kind of classifications for the items. So if you have a mailer with a bag figure, then you would go with this tier. If you have one plus an additional item, like maybe a certificate or something like that, then you go to this tier, and it goes on and on and on. Now there's only one tier, and that's 2 to 3 months, so I guess it just takes a little bit longer to do that, but this is where you go if you have like special items like that. And then of course, again, at below each grading scale, you're gonna see additional services for that action figure and whatnot. So now that we have the tier, so we're gonna use this tier code and then this tier pricing for the Boba Fett. We're gonna go ahead and get the tier code for the loose action figures. So we're gonna go over and then click on the second tab, which is the loose toys grading. And so as you can see, this pops up. Now as you can see right now, they'll put this temporary suspension of loose custom action figure grading, and I've noticed too that right now currently they're only doing loose vintage Star Wars action figures that are 3 3/4 inch figures and coins. So right now they're not doing anything else, so that is you know, one of the things about, you know, AFA is just like they're so tied up right now that they're just doing the vintage Star Wars stuff. But here for loose grading, there's only one really tier that you have to worry about, one grading scale. So here it doesn't matter, they're all, because they're, you know, they only offer loose standard Star Wars action figures. So here they have from 3 to 4 inches action figures, and again you would just get your tier code and then your tier cost. So I always go with Express because this right now is currently closed. So this is a 30 to 40 day turnaround point, and of course the max value of the items could only be 400 and below. So here, this is the tier code that I'm going to use for the Darth Vader, and here's the tier pricing. And again, if you want the UV upgrade on your case, you just get the code and then the pricing for that. Now if you scroll down and you have coins that you want to get graded, then this is the grading scale for the coins. And if you want to do it together, then you probably just want to contact AFA and then let them know, you know, that you want to do both. So again, here are the additional services for the coins if you want to do that. And then of course, this right here, the CIB authentication services. Now this is right here that really has to deal with like prototypes, loose prototypes, maybe very unique variants that they have not seen. You're gonna go here and then get your tier code and your tier cost. Now, if you have questions about it, like if you don't know if it's super rare or if it's a pre-production item, then it's probably best to contact AFA. Shoot them an email. They're really quick and they respond pretty quick on that. And then, of course, the last one, like I said, is the recase cost. If you need to get something recased. So here, this is recasing for packaged toys. So if you have something that was still, you know, packaged and the case is broken or whatever, then you would just get your your tier cost and then the tier code. Now for loose action figures, this is pretty much the one that they have, and right now they only have 2 options right there. And then if you have mail away exclusives, then this is the tier grading scale that you're gonna go ahead and get your tier code and then tier price, excuse me. So that's pretty much it right there to get your tier codes and tier pricing. So we're gonna go back to the form, fill that out, and then I'll explain how to fill out the rest of the forms. Alright guys, so once we got the tier code and the tier cost, I went ahead and filled it out. So as you can see here, we have one 1977 Kenner Star Wars loose Darth Vader. I put the fair market value of $50. There's their tier code. The tier cost was $35, and then I went ahead and opted in for the cleaning, so it's $5. So it brings out the total to $40. The second item is one 1995 Kenner Star Wars carded Boba Fett. Fair market value, I put $50. There's the tier code, tier cost, and then of course I went for the cleaning just in case if they could clean up the card back and the bubble or whatnot. And then of course the total went to $45. So the grand total right now for grading is just $85. Total of items, of course, 2. You add up the fair market value, which is $100 from 50 to 50. And then I went off and checked off the classic style label. No, do not, you know, open up the card figure. And then of course I said to go ahead and return the item uncased if it's you know, if something's wrong with it. So that's the second page, and that is complete as of right now. So that is done, so we could put that off to the side. And so the third page here is calculating the rest of the payment. So here we would add in the total insurance value of the submission. So if you have more than 1 pages, you would add it all up. So since we're only doing 1 page, that's $100, so we'll add that in. total cost of all these submissions, so we're only using one, so that's $85, so we'll add it in there. And then I'm gonna show you how to go ahead and get the return insurance and then the return shipping cost, and then fill out the rest and pretty much get this done. And so let's go ahead and go back to the website. All right guys, so now we're almost done. We're doing the last step, and that's pretty much figuring out what is the shipping cost and the insurance that we need to put on to the forms before we package it up and send it off. So I'm back to the AFA homepage. You're gonna go down to Submission Center again, scroll all the way down to return shipping rates. Now here, the first scale that you're gonna see is for package items only. So that Boba Fett that's still on its Power of the Force 2 card back, this is what's gonna apply here. So it's only one item, and so they highly recommend using UPS, and it's a lot cheaper. So as you can see, for that one item, shipping it back is gonna cost me $17.90. Now if I use the United States Postal Service, it's gonna cost me $26.90. So, and it's a lot better going with the UPS. So here, for one item, it's $17.90. If you have 2 or 3 items, then it's gonna be $9.70 for each. So you'll have to multiply that, you know, times 2 or times 3, and then the rates drop as you have more items being shipped back to you. But again, this is for package items, and then the package level has to deal with, you know, what tier did you go under. So if it's a standard size action figure, or custom 1 size, or mailer 2-piece, or mailer 3-piece, then you're on level 1. Now if it's anything above that, then you go to level 2. Anything above that, you go to level 3, and then so forth and so forth. So that's for package items. So that's going to apply to Boba Fett. So we're going to have to put in, you know, $17.90 plus whatever it's going to cost me to return, or the return shipment for one loose item. So this is for loose items and coins. And of course, again, you have the different levels depending on, you know, the scale of that loose action figure. So here it's all loose, 4 scale, 5 scale. So it's pretty much all your loose action figures. And so sending one back, one Darth Vader, is going to cost me $11.70. So always go with UPS, and then just make sure that if it's anything, if it's a standard size, just stick with level 1. But if it's, you know, obviously if you're having like a larger items, then go to level 2 or level 3 depending. And then, so that's the cost for shipping it back to me, okay, so to you guys. So once the item is graded, this is how much it's going to cost them to ship it back. So you got to pay for the shipping coming back to your home or wherever it's getting shipped to. Now at the bottom, now this has to deal with the shipping insurance rate for the item coming back to you. So depending on the market value that you have for those items, so we said pretty much the market value for our items is $100. So right here, the insurance for $51 through $100 would be $1. So on that section where, you know, the return insurance, it's going to cost me $1. And then of course it goes up by, you know, increments of 100, you know, the hundreds of dollars. So if it's, you know, 401 through 500, then it's going to cost $5 for the return shipment insurance. So now we have the cost of, you know, the insurance being shipped back and the cost of shipping the items back to the house. Then we're going to go ahead and finish off the form and start packaging it. Alright guys, so once we have all the shipping return cost and the shipping you know, insurance to get the items back from AFA, I already wrote down all the numbers. Now here is the total insurance value. That's the market value that we had put on the second form. Now this is important too. I don't think I mentioned this before, but that is going to cover you while your item is at AFA being graded. Just in case if something was to happen, this is pretty much what they're going to value your items. So it's very important not to like you know, undervalue your items being graded. Now the second one here, of course, since we're only using one submission form, the total came out to $85. So if you had more, you would just tally it up and then add the total right here. So it's 85. And then of course we already got the return shipping cost. So I added it up and it came out to $29.60. I hope my math is correct there. And then of course the return insurance. Now that's the insurance while the item comes back to you. And of course, course that that's actually going off your market value that you put on the form earlier. So that was $1. And then of course the optional signature confirmation, if your items are below below $500, I wouldn't worry about it, but if it's more, you might want to opt into this, so that way you make sure that your items get home safely. And then once you have your numbers here, all your figures, you just go ahead and add it. So again, I hope my math is right, but it came out to $115.60, and that's the total for getting everything graded and returned back to you. And of course here at the bottom, you just choose your method of payment. You put whatever credit card you're going to use, the credit card number, your name, and then you signed off. So this will complete the third page. The fourth page is pretty much a terms and condition. You just go ahead and read that. There's nothing you need to do with this page. And then the fifth page is pretty much a continuation of the terms and conditions. And then once you read it and understand, then you go ahead and sign, print your name and then date, and that will complete that one. And then the final page here is just, a release of liability, knowing that, if something was to happen and so forth, that you acknowledge and so forth. So you just go ahead, sign, print your name, and then date it. And then here, there's special instructions if you need to add more instructions for them. And so, if you do make a, if you register and make a profile with AFA and you opt in to be one of their members, they have like 3 tiers of members. They have a gold, silver, and I think a bronze, and I'm a silver level member. And so what that does is just, it gives you an additional discount every time you're grading an item. And so if you're going to be grading a lot, I say it's worth it. I'm a silver member. I might go to gold because I have so many figures I need to get graded. And so I'll just let them know that I'm a silver level member, and then I also let them know to please return any cases with the order. So that's the cases that I send in my figures in, and then I tell them if I calculate anything incorrectly, go ahead and adjust the total, and I give them a big thank you and a smiley face. And then at the bottom just gives you instructions on how to package your items when you're shipping it to AFA. And that is it. That is the this form is complete. It is ready to be shipped off, and I will show you how to package these items. I have one carded figure and then one loose figure, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do that next. Alright guys, so the way I ship my items, sending them off to AFA, or actually the same way I do it for collector archive services. So what I do is I usually get my items and then I'll bubble wrap around it. So if it's in a case, then I'll bubble wrap it. But if it's not in a case, I do the same thing too. I just bubble wrap it, just make sure that it's secure, and it's just got an extra addition of protection while the item's being shipped. Now for the box, you want to make sure that if you are sending an item that you have plenty of room, there's a good gap between the sides of the figure that you're getting graded, if it's carded or if it's loose. And then of course, there's that Darth Vader. Again, it's in the case and I bubble wrapped it, and I'll probably just put that guy off to the side right here. And so as you can see, there's some gaps along the side of the wall in the box. And so mostly I have all this peanut from previous orders of AFA. You don't have to use peanuts if you don't have it. You could use tissue paper, newspaper, whatever, but you just want to fill in those gaps there, so that way the item is not shipping or is not moving while it's being shipped. So once you have that all filled in with peanuts, then you just want to go ahead and then add your forms. Go ahead and I just place them on top, and then just get the box packaged up, and then take it over to the postal service, and then just get it shipped. And that's pretty much it. That's how I ship my items to AFA. So again, this is the same packaging that I do for collector archive services, and I hope this video was a good help for you guys. I know there's a lot of people who want to send figures to get graded. So thanks for watching, thank you for support, and I will talk to you in the next video.